Hello everybody, welcome back to the shop. Got something a little different for you today. I picked up these two hand planes that are obviously not in very good shape, but I got them for pretty cheap. And I thought I would just share the explanation of what I ended up with. Hopefully a little bit of a treasure. Obviously there's a lot to be desired. This first one here was labeled a Stanley Type 4, pre-lateral. And if you look at the frog, that seems to be consistent with that. The depth adjust screw seems to be right-handed thread and actually in pretty good shape. That's one of the reasons why I purchased this. And the lever cap seems ordinary and in good shape. And the iron and chip breaker, the chip breaker has the L. Bailey patent on it, so that's really a nice little bit to find. And the iron actually has the V logo on it, so the iron is several decades later, if this is indeed a Type 4. And it looks pretty rusted, probably has some amount of pitting, hopefully not very much. And the screw to hold the lateral adjust to the iron is smooth. There doesn't have ridges on it. So that's, I believe, period appropriate as well. The nut on the knob has a very narrow slot in it. Good news is it's turning. And on the tote, it has a similar narrow slot. And this one is also turning. I don't know if you can hear that squeaking. You pay more for that. And there's the shaft. And boy, that one actually looks, aside from the tarnish, in pretty good shape. Not a lot of chowdering on that groove there. The tote looks like it might have been in a fire, actually. That looks like charcoal on it. Isn't that a shame? But those are in pretty good shape. I think those will clean up reasonably well. And for the knob, and the knob as well, looks like it might have suffered from some fire damage. Again, that's a shame, but there might be some usable rosewood in there at some point. And the nut in the shaft, once again, looked to be, aside from a little tarnish and surface rust, in good shape, and that slot is nice and clean. Luckily that one loosened, as did that one. So we're on a roll today. This screw is square edge, which I think is consistent with a Type 4. And these two screws are pretty well tarnished, but not a lot of chowdering on the groove. So they'll probably clean up pretty well as well. Here's the frog. Rusty, but I would say generally in good shape. Hard to tell how much Japanning is on it, but it actually looks reasonably well. And that screw will come out as in good shape. The Y adjustment and the knob, again, it's right-hand threads, and it doesn't seem to be a lot of play in the yoke, so that's actually a knob in pretty good shape for what it is. And obviously I can't tell if there's any lettering in there. I'll have to try to clean that up and look. And the rest of the body, and look, the mouth, there's a couple pretty good chunks taken out of it. So this body, unfortunately, has seen better days. And the frog receiver is milled flat. So I will do a little research and try to confirm if this is indeed a Type 4. I suspect it is. So I think this is a Type 4, and I have a reasonable frog with a nice knob, yoke, and screw assembly. Got a couple decent frog screws out of it. A very nice chip breaker, and if I can hold the light right, you can see December 24th, 1867. So let's quickly go over this patent, and for reference, I like to find patents of this type on this particular website, Directory of American Tool and Machinery Patents, or DATAMP as it says here. I find these days going to Google Patents, it's a really tough front end. I haven't quite figured out how to use it, but this particular website seems to be easy to use. So anyway, so this patent actually chronologically is the third of the ones we're going to be talking about, but it's the first we're talking about here. The juice of this patent is essentially up here in Figure 2, and what he references here in Figure 3 is the traditional way that it's done. And the only difference is if you look down here where the chip breaker or cap iron is, there's a single bend at the end, and there's a gap between the cap iron and the actual iron itself. And here's the lever cap pushing down on it. And Leonard Bailey's patent basically changes the profile of the cap iron to have a concave bend in it. So there's a contact point here, B prime, then there's a little bulge and a contact point way out here at the tip, and again here's the lever cap bearing down right at the top of that concavity to put even pressure on both of these points. This is Leonard Bailey of Boston, Massachusetts, he says here, which is in Suffolk County. He claims here in this paragraph, make the cap iron with an additional bend B. Anyway, very wordy. Says he puts a double bend in it at the end so that you get that double pressure point down at the toe or the cutting edge area of the iron. The lever cap looks to be in decent enough shape. And again, the two screws and shafts that hold the knob and the tote are in pretty good shape. So I'd say definitely worth the amount of money I paid for it. Well, I did take this knob off, and if I can catch the light correctly, you'll see lettering in there. It does have the 2 Leonard Bailey patent dates on the inside of it. I think this hand plane was in a fire, because the dirt on this looks an awful lot like soot. And again, the 2 pieces of hardwood look like they've been charred and burned. That's a shame. But I think I did get quite a few interesting and useful parts. Something I just noticed now for the first time, I never realized that the nut that holds the tote on is larger than that holds the nut on. But anyway. And out of Roger K. Smith's book, there's a diagram of the inside of the knob. It says Bailey's patent, August 31st, 1858, August 6th, 1867. And this patent, August 31st, 1858, is the first one chronologically. And the idea of this patent is essentially down here in these diagrams, figure 7 and figure 2. It's just this cam lever here that he uses on the lever cap, and you show it in the up position here, and you fold this down to the down position here, and you can see there's a lobe on the cam that puts pressure on the lever cap to put pressure on the cap iron and hence hold the iron itself extra sturdy. And this being the first patent, here Leonard Bailey is of Winchester, Massachusetts. Winchester's a suburb of Boston, and I'm not going to read this patent. I find them to be very wordy, but it's kind of funny. He takes a great amount of effort to describe a keyhole slot, because I don't think the term keyhole slot was common back in 1858, so he had to describe this little thing here. By turning the thumb cam down, we clamp or confine the plane iron in the stock, but by turning such thumb cam upward as to bring it into position as represented in figure 7, we loosen the clamp lever for the bearer in such a manner as to enable either to remove it or to adjust the plane iron as circumstances may require. So this is actually a pretty nifty little patent. It allows you to get the plane iron in and out of the hand plane very easily and to secure it very quickly, and it's a relatively simple mechanism. This patent has withstood the test of time because most hand planes made today, particularly the better ones, have this very same mechanism in them. And the final patent here, August 6, 1867, is the second one chronologically. And this one, as I read the body of the text, it really discusses 2 things, but the part that we really care about is this figure 4 here. It's the Y adjustment yoke mechanism that allows you to very precisely adjust the depth of the iron for a deeper or a shallower cut. And let's zoom in on these diagrams. Faded, they don't seem to be very clear to me at all, but if we look at the full view here, you can see the part of the Y yoke that engages the nut here, and then here's the fulcrum point. There's a pin going through, and then there's a tab or a tongue sticking upward at an angle. And by this top view over here, you can't really tell, but I believe this tongue is sticking up out of the page. Figure 3 I think is the same diagram but a cutaway view, and I'm not sure it makes it any more clear. The idea is as this screw is screwed up and down, this yoke goes up and down over here, and then this tongue slides at an angle, plunging the iron deeper or less so. And he talks about the fact that this tab or the tongue engages not the iron itself but the cap iron, because you always want the cap iron to be situated very close to the cutting edge of the iron. But as the years go by and you keep sharpening the iron will slide down effectively in relationship to the cap iron. So by attaching it to the cap iron, you only need one slot, and that's the slot in the cap iron itself. Here he is, Boston, Massachusetts. He spends a fair amount of the text here describing the fact that it's a transitional plane with a metal or cast iron top that's attached to a wooden body below, and the cast iron top has slotted screws in it, which allows relative movement between the iron top and the wooden bottom, and that makes for adjusting the plane and servicing the wooden body of the plane as a bit easier. And here he says we're hole K in the plane iron instead of the cap iron. The iron, as it might become worn up by the process of sharpening it, would require a new hole or series of holes in it to render it available. And that's kind of what they do in some of the block planes that are available. There's a whole series of holes or slots, because as you wear away the iron, you need to engage it a little higher up. And once again, this patent back in 1867 has withstood the test of time. And here's this guy, reassembled. A beat up number 4 with some reasonable hardware on it. So this won't be a user, this will be a plane to donate parts to other planes. Okay, this plane, I've taken a closer look at it. I have to admit I was faked out. I thought this was a Stanley plane, but it is not. I think it's a Sargent plane. And there were a couple clues. I thought I was getting lucky. This front knob has the bead on it, but if you look at it closely, that doesn't quite look like the Stanley front knob profile. And this frog broken, you can see by those ridges on it. That's not something Stanley did. And the final clue is the trademark on the iron. It says Sargent on it. But with that said, let's take a look at what we have. And there's the nut that holds the knob on. And there's the shaft. Pretty rusty, but the threads are in good shape. So these 3 parts, kind of nice. The depth adjustment knob looks to be fine. It's right-hand thread, and this tote is obviously creamed. But the tote shaft, washer on it, and a nut, and they look to be in fair shape for their age. And there's another piece of presumably rosewood. We can put this in the parts pile for a later use. And I'm not going to spend any more time really on this plane because it's a Sargent, and I do plan on incorporating into a future video with another Sargent plane that I have. And as an added bonus, I also have this guy that I picked up, again, for very short money. This is a Stanley Bailey number 4. There's not a lot to it. It's missing the lever cap, the cap iron, and the iron. Obviously, the frog has been broken. Got the screws holding the frog and the screw that holds the front assembly. The depth adjustment knob is left-hand thread, and the yoke appears to be in decent shape. Almost looks like there's a number 8 cast in the back of the yoke there. The lateral adjust lever, probably can't get that to show, but there is one patent date on it. And the reason why I purchased this one, again, is this front knob seems to be in very good shape for its age and worth the price of the plane as it is. And according to Roger K. Smith's type study, the single patent date on the lateral adjust means that this guy is a type 8. And unfortunately, it's the only type 8 that I own. So it's kind of a shame, but at least I've got some parts should I run across another one. The frog screws seem a little chowdered up. I'm not going to remove them, but the body seems actually in pretty good shape for a type 8. And the knob is in good shape. To get this plane in good shape, I would need an iron, lever cap, frog, tote screw, nut. But the body's good, the depth adjustment knob, the yoke is good, the screw is good, and the front knob is good. So, I don't know, what's this, around a third of a plane? Anyway, that's all I got for this one. Just thought I would share a few different parts planes, and as I use these parts on other planes, I'll keep you guys in the loop. And I appreciate you coming by, spending a little time with me. I hope you stay safe, take care, and as always, keep your eyes out for the next one.